Non-stop tears were coming out of my eyes. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, my name's Alexa Raye and welcome to another video. I'm so glad you're here and I'm so glad you clicked on today's video. I am super excited because I've actually wanted to do this video for the longest time. Like, I've wanted to do it probably since the beginning of my booktube channel, but I just wanted to wait until I read like a good chunk of books so that I had a good amount to actually review and talk about with you guys. And I feel like I have finally read a good amount and we can sit down and finally film this video and talk about it together. So by the title, by the thumbnail, you already know what I'm going to be doing today. I am going to be talking about, reviewing, giving my own opinions on Steph Bohrer's 5-star reads. I am so excited. If you guys aren't familiar with Steph, I hate to say it, but you may be living under a rock. Possibly. I'm just kidding, but no, seriously. If you don't know who she is, go check her out right now. To me personally, I always call her like the booktube queen because I feel like that's just how I know her. She's probably one of the first people I started to watch when it came to book related videos. I love her videos so much. She's such a happy, upbeat person, and I also just feel like I have a lot of things in common with her, not just book related but also music related and hobby related and all this other stuff. So she is just like one of my favorite people. I thought it'd be really fun to sit down with you guys today and talk about all of the books she has rated 5 stars that I have also read and kind of give you guys my own personal opinions and reviews on them. Again, I feel like a lot of the books that Steph reads and rates pretty high are the same type of books that I love to read and also rate high. So this has been pretty fun and it's honestly been a very long awaited video in the making. Like I said, I wanted to do this like a year ago when I started my booktube, but I couldn't because I had only read like 2 or 3 books that she had rated 5 stars at that time. So it's been a year and I have read a pretty good chunk of books and I'm super excited to talk to you guys about them today. For the most part, these are books that I have reviewed on my channel already. I have definitely done a reading vlog or some type of video regarding all of these books at one point or another, so definitely go check out those videos if you want more in-depth details into them as well as just my real-time reactions to them. We're gonna jump right into it because I have a lot of books to talk about with you guys and I'm super excited. These are some of my favorite books as well and I'm just excited to talk to you guys about them, revisit some of them. I'm really excited for this, so we're gonna hop right into it. The sun is starting to set and it's going to be golden hour in here in just a little bit. Hopefully the lighting will cooperate with me for the next few minutes while we film this. Also, I always get questions about what I drink in all my videos. It's usually water. I'm usually always drinking water. If I'm not drinking water, I'm drinking tea. For those of you who were wondering what is in my cup all the time. The first book we're going to start off with is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Before you guys say it, I know Christina Lauren are actually 2 different people. It's Christina and Lauren. They're 2 best friends who co-write these books together. I actually found that out a few months ago and I thought it was the coolest thing to be co-writing books with your best friend. I feel like that's got to be so much fun, especially co-writing such amazing books like this. I want to be friends with them. Love in Other Words by Christina and Lauren. I also rated this 5 stars because it was the first friends to lovers trope I had ever read that I actually genuinely enjoyed. The friends to lovers trope was never really a fave for me because I just found it to be very basic and boring most of the time. This was the first book I read where I actually really loved it and enjoyed it, and I couldn't put this book down once I started it. I knew from early on it was going to be a 5-star for me, but this tells a story of 2 kids who grow up next door to each other and they actually bond over their love for books. I was hooked on this right away because the 2 main characters were literally bonding over books and I was like, oh, okay, I love this already. But anyways, they grow up next door to each other, they become best friends, they're each other's first loves, all this crazy stuff happens, and then one day a huge tragic event takes place and it causes Macy to basically disappear from Elliot's life, and she doesn't talk to him, she doesn't contact him until a decade later. A whole decade. They run into each other at a coffee shop. Everything kind of gets crazy then because Macy and Elliot are, I believe, in their mid-20s, maybe late 20s. You know, they've established their lives for the most part, and now they're trying to reconnect and make up for lost time together. It's such an emotional roller coaster, but honestly, it's worth every second, every page. This is a dual perspective read, and it also jumps between time periods now and then, which I also really like because we get to watch Macy and Elliot grow up together and fall in love and all this stuff happens, but we're also watching them at the same time reconnect and figure out what happened all those years ago. I absolutely love dual perspective reads because I love seeing like the perspective from both characters. I feel like you get to know characters way better, and then I also love like the dual time period. I love that we're jumping between now and then in this because again, you're just watching them fall in love and then trying to reconnect, and it's just beautiful. It's an incredible, beautiful book. If you're not into the friends to lovers trope, I promise you this book will absolutely have you changing your mind. I was shook when I read it. Next up, we have another book by Christina Lauren. It's the Unhoneymooners. This book gives off like the best summer vibes because the majority of the story takes place in Hawaii. I think when I read this, I rated it 3 or 4 stars. I can't remember. I know it wasn't a 5-star read. It's because the male main character was just not my type of vibe, honestly. I don't know, it might be an unpopular opinion, but Ethan in this story is unsufferable in my opinion. So as I mentioned, the majority of this book takes place in Hawaii, so it gives off super fun, summery vibes. And the two main characters are Olive and Ethan. They absolutely despise each other. You guys know I'm a huge sucker for a good enemies to lovers, and that's exactly what we get in this book. We get a good enemies to lovers trope as well as a fake dating trope. Olive and Ethan absolutely despise each other, but they're kind of stuck with each other because Olive's sister marries Ethan's best friend, so they can't get away from each other. They are literally stuck with each other. At the wedding, there's a seafood bar that actually everyone at the wedding gets food poisoning from the seafood bar. They're all just horribly sick except Olive and Ethan. I think Ethan is super grossed out over like food bars in general, and I think Olive doesn't like seafood or something like that, so the two of them don't touch it and they don't get food poisoning, but everyone else does. The bride and groom are too sick to go on their honeymoon, so they offer it up to Ethan and Olive. Even though they despise each other, they agree to go on it. The only stipulation is that they have to pretend to be the newlyweds or the resort will kick them out because it's only supposed to be for the newlyweds. So the two of them find themselves pretending to be not only fake dating, but literally newlyweds. So they're supposed to be head over heels in love with each other, obsessed with each other, and it's hilarious. I absolutely adored this book. I thought it was so much fun. I love the Hawaii vibes. They do all these fun things in Hawaii that I just absolutely loved reading about. The whole book was absolutely adorable. It was hilarious. The enemies to lovers was totally on point. Everything was good for me until like the last quarter, the last part of it. Some stuff goes down and I just don't like how it's handled and how Ethan kind of reacts, and I don't like the way he treats Olive either. I just didn't like the way it ended, and Ethan really disappointed me, so I think that's why it wasn't a 5-star for me. It was on its way to being a 5-star though. Like, it had potential, but it just didn't hit it for me. Next up, we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You guys already know, if you have seen honestly any book rec videos on my channel, you guys know I am obsessed with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I love this book with all my heart. It's honestly kind of funny because I thought this was a super popular book that a lot of people love. I actually get a lot of comments from people saying that they did not like this book and it's like their least favorite book by her, which I thought was really interesting because this is personally my favorite book by her. I just thought this entire story was so beautiful. It just really stuck with me after reading it. The storyline, the characters, the way the book is set up, everything is just so perfect to me. This tells the story of a famous actress, Evelyn Hugo, and her rise to stardom in Hollywood, as well as her 7 husbands along the way. I can't say too much about this book without giving it away, but basically Evelyn Hugo is being interviewed by someone, and for the first time ever she is telling her life story, and it's a very big deal. People have been trying to get her to interview for years, for her entire life, and she has always declined them. Up until this point, she's ready to talk and tell her story. There's a little stipulation with it. She requests a specific person to come and interview her. They want to send their best team out there, but Evelyn declined them and said she only wanted one person to interview her. So the entire story is basically told from Evelyn's point of view. We're going through the decades with her, her rise to stardom, her 7 husbands, all while trying to figure out why she requested this specific person to interview her. It's a wild story. There's a little mystery in there the entire time that you're just trying to figure it out. You're trying to piece everything together to figure out why this person is so special and important to her. This had me sobbing, honestly. This book broke my heart in so many different ways. Something I absolutely love about Taylor Jenkins Reid and her writing style is that she really makes you feel like you're living in those time periods. So I really felt like I was in Hollywood during the 60s, 70s, 80s. It was so much fun reading this, and it leads us into Daisy Jones and the Six, which again, so cool. I literally felt like I was going through the 70s with them, and it was such a fun and different type of read for me. When I read Daisy Jones and the Six for the first time, I think I rated it a little bit lower. I think I gave it a 3 or 4 star. It just wasn't something I was used to reading. The setup of the book is definitely different. It's kind of set up in an interview type of style. I think at the time I just didn't appreciate it enough, and I also read it during a 24-hour readathon, so I think that also kind of threw me off. But Daisy Jones and the Six was another fun read. I've definitely changed my opinion over the past year with it, and I've definitely leaned more towards it being a 4 star than a 3 star. This definitely gives off Fleetwood Mac vibes. It takes place in the 70s. It's about this band, the Six, and this girl, Daisy Jones. They come together and they become one of the biggest bands of their time. It's really cool, and like I said, it's told in an interview style because what happens is they go on tour, and at one of their concerts they just decide to call it quits. They never perform again together, and then many years later they come back together for an interview to talk about what happened all those years ago, why they separated, what the drama was all about. It's pretty cool that's told in an interview style because you're getting the perspective from all the bandmates. It's a really different read when going into it, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty fun, it's pretty entertaining. Next up we have The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I recently read this last month, I believe. This was such a fun read. If you're a big Disney fan like myself, this gives off all the Disney vibes. It's incredible. This is book 1 in the Dreamland Billionaire series. It tells the story of Rowan and Zara. Rowan is in the business of making fairy tales and making dreams come true. His grandfather created this empire, and of course he created Dreamland, which essentially is Disney. When Rowan's grandfather passes away, he passes Dreamland down to Rowan, but he has a stipulation with everything, and Rowan basically has to come up with a new renovation plan for Dreamland, but it has to create a positive change and make good by all the people. So the entire book is basically about Rowan trying to come up with this renovation plan. And then we have Zara, who already works at Dreamland, and she is super creative. She has all these brilliant ideas, and when Rowan discovers that, Zara and him kind of work together with creating a new plan, and it's a super fun, adorable read. It gives off Disney vibes. It's a Grumpy meets Sunshine. It's also a workplace romance, which was really fun. Surprisingly, I only gave this book 4 stars though, because Rowan was just so irritating at some points in this book that I could not deal with him. He was such a drama queen. He honestly was the reason why I couldn't give this 5 stars, but it was still 4 stars. Like, I still really enjoyed this book. I could not recommend it enough. The entire series is honestly incredible, and Lauren Asher as a whole is probably one of my favorite authors at the moment. She just writes such great books. All her books give me like those happy butterfly feelings, and then they're also just super fast paced. They're easygoing reads. This book is kind of on the chunky side, but I flew through it. It was just incredible. Absolutely loved it, adored it. The hype around the series and Lauren Asher is totally real. Next up, we have another favorite of mine. We have The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is book 1 in the Off-Campus series. Definitely 5 star for me. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It's one of my favorite sport romances. Garrett Graham is still one of my top tier book boyfriends. I have yet to find another book boyfriend that can compare to him. He is just so special to me. Like, I feel like nobody will ever top him. This entire book was... It is something I still hold close to my heart today because it's just one of my favorites. But if you're not familiar with the Off-Campus series, it basically tells the story of, I think, 4 hockey players who are on the same team together, and each book is about them finding love. This one is about Garrett Graham. I'm pretty sure he's like the team captain, and he's already set to go play for the Bruins after college, so he is very well established in the hockey world in this book. The main problem for him in this book is he has to be passing his classes in order to play on the team. He ends up failing one of the classes, so So he asks a girl in his class, Hannah Wells, if she will tutor him and help him out. She makes it pretty hard for him, but eventually she agrees, and they come to this agreement that she will help tutor him and help him pass the class if he helps her kind of get the attention of a football player she really likes. They come up with this deal, this plan to help one another. We know what happens. We already know what happens in books like this. It's still one of my favorite books today. It's one of my favorite book couples. Everything about their relationship is so beautiful, pure. It really just tugged at my heartstrings reading this. It gives you that happy butterfly feeling. The next book I have is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is like a staple to Steph. I feel like this is her book. When you see The Song of Achilles, you immediately think of Steph because it's the book she talks nonstop about. I'm pretty sure she has a tattoo for this book. It's her favorite book of all time, and I love that for her. It's one of those books that I read, and unfortunately it was a total miss for me. I think I rated it 2 or 3 stars. Again, very similar to Daisy Jones and the Six. I think at the time I wasn't mature enough as a reader to appreciate this book, and I would like to go back and reread it. I'd like to listen to the audiobook. I hear it's incredible. When I was reading it the first time around, it was really slow for me. I couldn't get into it. There were a lot of characters. There were a lot of character names that I couldn't pronounce. I was getting lost a lot of the time. It was a really hard one for me to get through. There are really sad parts of this book that also just ripped my heart out, and I think that's another reason why I didn't like it, because at that time in my life, I really did not like sad books at all. I definitely would like to go back and reread this, give it another try, because I definitely think as you grow as a reader, your opinions change. I think if I were to go back and reread this now, I'd probably really appreciate it and enjoy it. I'm going to give it another try because I really think it has potential to be one of my favorite reads. I just wasn't ready for it. Next up, we are going to be jumping in to a stack of Coho books that she has rated 5 stars. About a year ago, I was on a Coho kick. It's all I read. I loved Colleen Hoover. It's mainly because her books are pretty short, easygoing, fast-paced reads. I think everyone at one point or another loves Coho and they go through a Coho era. I haven't read one of her books in probably like 7-8 months. It's crazy to say, but yeah, I haven't picked up a Coho book in a hot minute. I would like to go back and reread some of these just because I want to see if I would still enjoy them now. Like now that I've read so many books and I've grown as a reader, I want to go back and read some of these books to see if I still would rate them what I rated them then. We're gonna jump right into it. The first book we have is November 9th. I rated this 5 stars as well. This was absolutely adorable when I read it. It tells the story of Fallon and Ben. They meet every year on the same day, November 9th. Ben is essentially writing a story about him and Fallon meeting every year on the same day, and eventually Fallon kind of catches on that something is off. Like she thinks that Ben may be hiding something from her, and it's a wild ride. I have to say, like, the big plot twist in this threw me off. Thinking about it now, I'm kind of in shock that I rated it 5 stars, and that's why I'd like to go back and reread it to see if it'd still be 5 stars for me. At the time, I really enjoyed it. I think I love Coho books because they're so chaotic and crazy, and that's why I love them, because they're just unlike any other book I've ever read. Going off of that, we have Ugly Love. This is actually part of the same universe, so we see characters from this book pop up in this book as well. I remember loving Ugly Love, okay? It was one of my favorite books when I read it. This tells the story of Tate and Miles. They're essentially friends with benefits in this book, and it's because Miles went through a very traumatic experience when he was younger, and we actually get to learn about that throughout this story. It's a dual perspective as well as dual time period, so we jump between now and then, and we get to see what happened to Miles all those years ago. Another crazy read that just kind of shook me, okay? The plot twist shook me, and then the deeper you get into the plot twist, books literally have you wondering if you're crazy for liking them. Next up, we have All Your Perfects. This is the only book I think I'm going to share out of Coho's pile that I didn't rate 5 stars. I didn't love this book just because, again, at the time, it was a really hard read. This is definitely one of the sadder reads she has, and it really just rips your heart out. We basically watched this couple between 2 different time periods. We watched them back then when they were falling in love with each other, and then we watched them now once they've who've been married for a few years and they're just hitting a rough patch. They're not as in love as they were when they first met, and the story is such a sad, heartbreaking story, and I think I gave it like 3 stars. Heartbreaking. If you're looking for a book that will rip your heart out. Next up we have Confess. This is actually one of my favorite Coho books, and when I found out she rated it 5 stars, I was super happy about it. I feel like this is a very underrated Coho book. A lot of people don't really know about it. I love that the whole book revolves around art. That's probably why I love it so much. Basically, this tells the story of Auburn and Owen. Auburn basically moves back to town because she's trying to get something back that she lost, and she's looking for work, and she walks into an art studio one day asking for work, and it happens to be Owen's art studio. He basically takes anonymous confessions and turns them into artwork that he then sells. I love the whole idea of the art gallery he runs. I think that's like the main reason why I rated this 5 stars. But he ends up getting Auburn a job because something about her seems very familiar to Owen, and he doesn't know why, but something about her seems familiar. So he gives her a job and they end up working together, and all this crazy stuff happens, and then Owen also finds out what she's trying to get back, and it's a whole crazy story. Colleen Hoover books will most likely rip your heart out. And then the last Coho book I have that Steph rated 5 stars is Reminders of Him. This is so sad. It's so sad, okay? It's about a single mother who is fighting for her child after losing her husband. It's a whirlwind of emotions. It's a roller coaster. It will rip your heart out. You will cry so many times, but nonetheless, absolutely beautiful. It was 5 stars and it hurt my heart in every way possible. I love this story so much. Like I mentioned though, I haven't read Coho books in such a long time. I really would like to go back and reread these to see if my opinions would be different now. For the most part, I have always loved Colleen Hoover books. They're very short, fast-paced, easygoing reads. Her characters and her stories are just addicting. Like, that's the best way I can say it. And last but not least, the final book that I'm going to be reviewing in today's video that Steph has given 5 stars and that I have given 5 stars many times. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and like, if you guys see this book at the bookstore, if you see someone talking about it, reading it, reviewing it, I hope you think of me because I talk about it so much on my channel. Can you guys guess what book it is? Did you comment down below what book you thought it was? If so, was it Archer's Voice? I hope it was Archer's Voice, because with the amount of times I've talked about this book on my channel, I hope you guys think of me when you see this book, because I talk about this book nonstop. I quote this book nonstop. Their story is my favorite story. Nothing will ever top this book, I think, because nothing has topped it. This book is probably one of the first books to have me bawling my eyes out. It hit me so hard reading this. It was absolutely beautiful. Their story is absolutely beautiful. Bree and Archer have my heart forever. If you have not read this yet, I highly recommend with my entire heart. I cannot recommend this book enough to you guys. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I've talked about it so much, but this really just tells the story of 2 broken people who learn to love again and love each other, love themselves. It's absolutely beautiful. I love this book. It's a small town trope. There is a little bit of Grumpy Meets Sunshine in here. You're gonna tear up just thinking about it, okay? But that is all for today's video. It's honestly perfect timing because golden hour is upon us, as you can see. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love doing videos like this where I sit down and talk to you guys about books. It's fun. Let's do it again sometime. Subscribe down below so we can hang out some more. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Comment down below if you have read any of the books you saw in today's video and what you rated them, if they were also 5-star reads for you. Stay tuned though, I have a few reading vlogs coming out soon and I'm excited. And yeah, okay, I'm gonna go eat now. But I love you guys so much and I'll see you in my next video.